I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to defend his cause. Maintain the honors of his word, the glory of his cross.
Hello, I'm James Brown, and on behalf of the Eastern Church of Christ located in Toronto, Canada, I'd like to welcome you to today's edition of Walking Through the Bible, a podcast where we seek to study the Bible and the Bible alone. Please stick around afterwards for information on how you can contact us. But for now, please go to the book of Genesis, and we'll turn you over to Jeremy Disocam for our study of the day.
Thank you, James, and welcome to all of our viewers. This is the 142nd lesson in our study of Genesis. Yesterday we covered Genesis chapter 41, verses 37 to 45, discussing how Pharaoh essentially made Joseph the prime minister of Egypt. If you missed that episode and would like to watch it, you can find it and all of our other podcasts on our website at www.eastendchurch.org. You can also find them on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/EastEndChurchOfChrist under the Walking Through the Bible Genesis playlist. Today we're going to begin with Genesis 41 verse 46 and read through verse 57. The text that you'll see on the screen is from the English Standard Version, but you're welcome to follow along with any version that you have. So let's now read Genesis 41 beginning at verse 46. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went through all the land of Egypt. During the 7 plentiful years the earth produced abundantly, and he gathered up all the food of these 7 years which occurred in the land of Egypt, and put the food in the cities. He put in every city the food from the fields around it. And Joseph stored up grain in great abundance, like the sand of the sea, until he ceased to measure it, for it could not be measured. Before the year of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph. Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bore them to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house. The name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. The 7 years of plenty that occurred in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began to come, as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried for Pharaoh for bread. Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph. What he says to you, do. So when the famine had spread over all the land, Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Moreover, all the earth came to Egypt, to Joseph, to buy grain, because the famine was severe over all the earth. In yesterday's episode, we find that Joseph was made the person in charge of overseeing the collection of food during the 7 years of plenty, and as we see today, its distribution during the 7 years of famine. It is quite the rise in position for the person who was sold as a slave by his brothers, for even though he was put in charge of wherever he went, this was on a different level, for this was Pharaoh placing him over the entire land of Egypt. Joseph married Asenath, the daughter of the priest of On. It is said here that Joseph is 30 years old, meaning that he had been in Egypt for 13 years and spent a considerable amount of it in prison. Joseph's wife bore him 2 children before the famine began, Manasseh and Ephraim. The descendants of these 2 children are going to play an important role in Israel later on, so it is important that we remember their names. Manasseh means causing to forget, for Joseph said that God made him forget all of his hardship and his father's house. Ephraim means double fruitfulness, for God has made Joseph fruitful in the land of his afflictions. Both of the names here do give us a glimpse into Joseph's state of mind, for he still knew that he was a foreigner in Egypt, sent here as a slave by his brothers, but protected and raised up by God in order to serve God's higher purpose. During the 7 years of plenty, Joseph collected all the food that was grown and stored it up in each city. In the beginning, it appears that Joseph kept a close inventory of what was stored, but as the crops grew in abundance, measuring it became impossible, so Joseph stopped. Suffice it to say, when God said that there would be 7 years of plenty, he didn't mean just a little bit of plenty. He meant a lot. But just as the 7 years of plenty were plentiful, the years of famine were barren. It began in the year following the 7th year of plenty, just as Joseph had said. This again shows us that God can be trusted to be accurate and keep his word. The famine was so bad that the people complained to Pharaoh. What was Pharaoh's response? Go talk to Joseph and do what he says. So it was during the 7 years of famine that Joseph sold all that was stored up during the 7 years of plenty. However, it wasn't just the Egyptians who were coming to buy food, for it says that all the earth came to buy food. That the famine was to extend past the borders of Egypt is something we did not initially find out from Joseph's interpretation, but it's something God brought about in order to fulfill prophecy. With that, our time is up for today. Please join us, the Lord willing, tomorrow when we will continue our study of Genesis, beginning with Genesis 42, verse 1.
Thank you, Jeremy. And to our viewers, we also thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Should you have a question or comment, please leave them below or email them to answerintheword@gmail.com. We'll try to respond to you as quickly as we can. We hope you'll join us, the Lord willing, tomorrow when we will be continuing on our study of the book of Genesis. Goodbye for now and have a great day.
I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to